The unsurpassed, penetrating, and perfect truth is seldom met with, even in 100,000 myriad kalpas. Now we can see and hear it. We can remember and accept it. I vow to make the Buddha's truth one with myself. Homage to the Buddha, homage to the Dharma, homage to the Sangha. To study Buddhism is to study the self. The self is the very mind that seeks the way. But what is this mind that seeks the way? Today we'll explore what we mean by the word mind. What is the mind and what is the self? But first we need to examine what it is that actually brings us to this practice in the first place. Here is Reverend Master Daizui's answer. One night on a backpacking trip, I spent a couple of hours just staring up into the vastness of a starry mountain sky. Something inside me shifted, and for a little while, I just knew that there was infinitely more to this universe than my own petty concerns, and that somehow I was part of a greater truth. I couldn't have said what that truth was, but over time I realized that nothing short of realizing oneness with truth would satisfy. These words were written by Reverend Master Daizui in his book, Buddhism from Within. The experience he describes is the awakening of the mind that seeks the way. His words resonate with me because I came to Buddhist practice as a result of a similar experience. In 1986, I decided that looking into meditation would be a good idea. Not religion, just meditation. This was during a time when meditation practices of various kinds were popping up all over. After looking around for quite a while for a class that would fit into my schedule, I decided to attend a UC Extension weekend class. And there was Reverend Master Jiu and 2 other monks. Early on in the first morning, she quoted the Udana scripture. O monks, there is an unborn, undying, uncreated. And then she spoke about it. I don't remember her words, but I remember what she said. There is something greater than we are. Everyone can know it for themselves. It doesn't require believing any particular doctrine or teaching. It's our birthright. The certainty of her words went straight in, and I recognized a yearning that had always been there. I think of these kinds of experiences as being described by the word ping. We read or hear or see something that causes our heart to say, yes. If we've read it, sometimes we memorize it, write it down, print it out, and hang it on the wall. What we heard or read is not the important thing. We need to pay attention to the ping. Sit with it, don't think about it. It's very important because that ping is a gateway, perhaps to something we see about ourselves, or we see the truth of a teaching, or for a moment we're in touch with something greater than ourselves. This is our own Dharma gate. Each one of us here today has a different story that expresses why we are here. We all have one thing in common, acknowledging that we are suffering from conditions in our lives, or that something is missing in our lives, and we want to do something about it. Suffering manifests in 2 main ways. Some of us feel unable to cope with the conditions of our life. Sometimes these conditions are harsh: loss of loved ones, terminal illness, difficult family problems, unbearable working conditions. Sometimes our suffering takes the form of dissatisfaction with our life, feelings of lack of meaning in our life, the sense that there must be something more, something that can help us make sense of things. In other words, some of us are pushed by unbearable conditions to find relief. Others of us are pulled by the need to make sense of our lives, to find what is missing. Push or pull, we all end up looking for help. We all end up here. Reverend Master Daishin Morgan refers to this as the wish. He says, everyone would like to make sense of life, but for some people, the need to explore life's meaning can't be ignored. This need may have been awakened in us by experiencing particular events, or it may have been felt for as long as we can remember. To know such a call is to feel its insistence. Having felt it, one can hide by running to distractions of one kind or another, but whenever there's a pause in the business of life, there it is, awaiting our response. This call is the greatest blessing imaginable, and it sometimes feels like torture. Even though it makes so many demands, we would be bereft without it. When we are able to acknowledge the presence of the wish, then the wish sets all the priorities of life. The insistence of the wish drives us to understand the wish itself. What is certain is that following the wish will not require harm to ourselves or to others. It will certainly change our priorities. Over time, we will find ourselves gradually changing the way we approach our lives. This is the result of recognizing that our life no longer needs to be driven by fear or desire. The wish becomes the mind that seeks the way. Now, looking at the mind. When we read or hear teachings about the mind, we usually encounter two ways of describing mind. The first is what could be called everyday mind. It's the mind that remembers things, plans things, and generally gets us through the details of daily life. Uchiyama Roshi describes it this way. Our conscious self, what we usually refer to as our self, includes not only who we think we are right now, but also our ideas of who we think we have been in the past. In other words, what we define as self-consciousness or conscious self is the sum of our thoughts when we are awake, from the time we were children up to the present. We take all these conscious thoughts and abstract them from our life and call them our self. This is a description of the mind that operates in the world of subject and object, good and bad, beautiful and ugly. It operates almost below our own radar, feeding us information that we aren't conscious of requesting. It plans and remembers, it worries. Sometimes it feels like we have no control over it. It's extremely useful in a multitude of situations. It takes us to the moon and far into space. It cooks a great meal. It remembers someone's birthday. At other times, it works to our disadvantage. For example, when we meet a group of people, this mind quickly takes inventory of what it sees, and it slaps on labels: sloppy dresser, beautiful smile, friendly, etc. And unfortunately, we often respond to the labels rather than to the person in front of us. Our mind checks our memories of similar people we have met before and decides, this is how I relate to sloppy dressers or friendly people. The labeling process is operating all day, every day. It classifies everything we see and hear, read, or listen to. Smells, too. Think of the smell of cinnamon in the air or of freshly baked bread. According to Reverend Master Daizui, this small self, the unaware self, easily becomes satisfied or complacent. Thoughts are simply thoughts, and desires are simply desires. We can believe them if we choose, we can act on them if we choose, or we can simply watch them rise and fall within the mind, if we choose. When our small foolish self remains unsatisfied or becomes completely bewildered, when we experience uncertainty or even helplessness, then there is an opening for the immeasurable natural life beyond the thoughts of that little self to appear. Shohaku Okumura says, when a wise person meets someone or experiences something, she lets go of her preconceptions. Each encounter becomes an opportunity to transform pre-existing ideas and to set aside biases and preconceptions. Each experience becomes an opportunity to see a fresh new world. The difference between ordinary and wise is not a difference in the quality of a person's intelligence. It's a difference in the attitude with which they meet things in their daily lives. What is this attitude? It's the mind that seeks the way. The mind that dwells within the interconnectedness of all things. The mind that excludes nothing, including our ordinary everyday mind. It includes everything. The mind that asks, what is this? What is this that is before us? What is this? To find the mind that seeks the way, it's necessary to first thank our everyday mind, the labeling, discriminating mind, and let it have a rest. Please notice that I said, let it rest, because it works hard. But in fact, there are not really two minds, the good mind and the bad mind, big mind and little mind. There is only one mind. It's just that the discriminating aspect of mind has been permitted to be center stage for such a long time. But it will have its turn on stage again when its talents are needed. The mind that seeks the way, this aspect of mind, goes by many names. Buddha nature, true self, greater self. The mind that seeks the way is the mind of things as they are, the mind that naturally responds to the need of the moment. It does whatever needs to be done because it's alive and present. The mind that seeks the way isn't concerned with affirmations of itself. It's the mind that's there before we cook it up by thoughts. The mind that seeks the way is the mind of impermanence. It is impermanence itself. Our whole being and all of existence are impermanence. Shohaku Okumura writes that Buddha nature is not something solid or immovable, but rather an energy that motivates us to practice, not just meditation or Buddhism, but any practice that resonates with us. Buddha nature is the fire of life force that enables us to aspire to be better persons. It inspires us to be more helpful to others, to settle into a healthy way of life, to practice the way. Buddha nature permeates the universe, and it is the universe. One of our offertories says, there is no place where it does not so manifest itself. This includes within us. Our common sense believes that we exist only because we are conscious of ourselves. However, in reality, the true self exists even when we let go of self-consciousness. According to our common sense, we firmly believe that our own thoughts are absolutely correct and the only measure of all things. But if we settle ourselves in faith, in the true self, we can see that our thoughts are nothing more than what Uchiyama Roshi refers to as secretions from our brain. Doing meditation is nothing but actually experiencing this. In meditation, the self that lives life experience and the world that is lived as life experience are not two. They are one. This is the absolute one reality before any division into two. In this world, we can see everything as the reality of life. Many of us who come to training carry a deep doubt about our own worth. This doubt can be a poison affecting our ability to see clearly. It can result in the conviction that we are somehow unworthy. This is why Dogen's teaching of the unity of training and enlightenment is vital. Although it can be difficult to accept in the beginning, over time this teaching can help convert doubt into deep faith. Enlightenment is always there. We just need to learn to recognize it. One of the core teachings of Soto Zen is that we do not train to remove our defilements or to transform them into enlightenment. We will hear more about this teaching when we take a look at what it means to actually seek the way. Our very existence is the mind that seeks the way. It's as fundamental as that. The will to enlightenment is synonymous with our own existence and the existence of everything. What is the true self? It's the reality of the self that is life itself. In meditation, we just sit as life itself and let go of life as it is. Reverend Master Daishin Morgan writes, "There is a profound nature at the heart of life that answers my human need to be at peace and to grow. It doesn't depend on visions and great experiences, nor does it reject them. In my experience, it is found slowly and within the seemingly unexceptional nature of the ordinary mind and heart. The mind that seeks the way is the mind that asks, 'What is this?' Every day, what is this before me?" Homage to all the Buddhas in all worlds. Homage to all the Bodhisattvas in all worlds. Homage to the Scripture of great wisdom.